Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. In our most recent office hour in the Purify Your Gaze community, we spoke on the topic of accountability. And I recall the conversation that happened a while back in the community on this topic, and a beautiful share from Brother X at the time that I want to share with you as well. He said, get accountable with the person who stands to suffer the most from your behavior. Real heartbreaking accountability is desperately missing for a lot of us in the community. You want to think about expanding your circle of disclosure to include the possibility of consequences. But this isn't about finding someone to beat you up. It's about building up our conscience. We need to feel how wrong we are. I'm not talking about feeling bad about our actions. That's just lame guilt. Mostly, I'm talking about internalizing the inherent evil in pornography. We need to get sick over this, but we can't, so we need to see someone else get sick over it. Someone who loves you but is horrified by the idea that you would contribute so actively and consistently to the degradation and deprivation of yourself and other human beings. What I appreciate about this perspective from Brother X is it doesn't only give us an idea of how accountability reconnects us with our hearts, it also tells us what accountability is not. It's not about finding someone to beat you up, and it's not about finding a place to manage your shame or to dump your shame in order to feel better about yourself. So what is accountability? It's actually something natural. Our bosses hold us accountable at work. Our teachers hold us accountable for the quality of our work. Our bodies hold us accountable if we overexert ourselves or overeat. We're going to feel consequences from that. But in the process of finding oneself obsessed and compulsive over a certain behavior and a certain habit, in that process, we might have dismantled some of those natural structures. We might have enshrouded ourselves in secrecy and darkness. And we know it's a spiritual reality that the heart can rust from sin. So we might, over the course of time, our hearts might have rusted, and we might have disconnected from that natural reality of accountability. And if that happened, then it's worth asking, how can I reinstate that in my life? How can I reconnect to that? And while I will openly admit that this video isn't nuanced enough to tell you precisely what your next step is when it comes to accountability, the reason I still find this worthwhile sharing is that I believe it's a real danger in recovery work that we can be so busy and engrossed in problem solving, making sure I have just the right filters, making sure the routines in my day are set up properly and perfectly, that our busyness in problem solving can distract us and delude us from what the problem is in the first place. If I've enshrouded myself in secrecy, if I've disconnected from honesty, then how can I hope to find light again if all I'm doing is problem solving and I'm not reconnecting to honesty? I'm not reconnecting to honesty. I think this is something worth thinking about for all of us. Now, I'm not saying again that this is telling you what your next step is, but if you were thinking about that already, if you were thinking about maybe opening up to your spouse, but their thoughts and worries and concerns, then I can say that honesty is a necessity for recovery. And if you weren't thinking about this, then I encourage you to start thinking about it. But what I will say is this, and I'll end with this, is sometimes we might hear something that tells us, I need to take action. And this might be the message for you that says, yes, action is needed, but sometimes we might become overwhelmed by that and might want to rush to take action. And accountability is not something that's the more the merrier. It's not what it's about. It's not about just telling everybody that you know, right? But thinking about in your own life, yes, we might share with, in generalities, we might share with people, those we love, that we're struggling, but thinking about the potential of including in your life somebody that knows fully the extent of your wrong. And even that is actually one of the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and other recovery groups, is that there should be another human being that knows fully the extent of our wrong. So if you're thinking about that now, I will just remind you that it's not necessarily something that you need to rush into. But to have that thought process going is meaningful and important, I believe. And a possible next step would be to discuss that with somebody. And if you have somebody in your life that you already have some openness with, that's a discussion. But if you don't, then I realize that can be a challenge. And I'm grateful for the Purify Your Gaze community, because for many people, it is the first step. There are people in the community having these conversations. There are people in the community opening up, right? And then trying to take it further and say, how can I bring more honesty into my life outside of the virtual world as well. I know these are things to think about. I know this is a big topic, and I know that a short video like this doesn't cover all the nuances, but that commitment and that intention and turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, asking Him for guidance, I believe are meaningful steps to take from here. May Allah guide us. May Allah protect us. Barakallahu feekum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.